Welcome back to the Brave Bitches podcast. Hi, Joan. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited you're here.
Thanks, Hannah, for having me. I'm really excited to be here as well.
Absolutely. We are recent friends. We met a couple months ago when I joined your meetup group for women empowering women. And I've loved going to your accountability group. I'm bummed I've missed the past couple ones, but that's been such a gift to me to get to connect with women and have a space where I can focus on my goals and have other people that are cheering you on. But yeah, it's so good. I am excited to get to talk to you though, and actually get to hear some of your story, get to know you a little bit today. So if you were like to introduce yourself for anyone that wants to get to know you, how would you introduce yourself? And maybe say what you're passionate about.
That's a great question because, I'm kind of a chameleon. So I introduce myself different ways to different groups of people. So if I'm at a networking event, it's, hi, I'm Joan Russell and I'm a midlife transformation strategist. But any place else, it's like, hi, I'm Joan. How are you? And I'm more concerned with what the other person's talking about usually. So it all depends. You have to kind of get to know me and bring it out. And then I got way too many stories other than that. So I'm glad you're enjoying the accountability group because last week was fire and I'm sorry that you missed it, but there's going to be plenty more where that came from. It was so good.
Oh man, that's so cool. I know it's been like crazy with me moving and everything, but even just the ones I've been, it's cool to see each woman talk about their goals and then see them talk about it again a couple weeks later. And they're like, I did this, I checked this off. And I just feel like that's so refreshing. I do women's events as well, but I don't do any surrounding around like goal creation or accountability. And that's something that I feel like is so refreshing to me to have that because I have a lot of friends, I have connections, but to have a space where you can actually be like, all right, keep me accountable and like listen to me, make sure I'm doing my stuff, like that's refreshing. How did you like decide that you wanted to create a group like that in the first place?
Oh gosh, probably because I need accountability myself. And that's going to be kind of how I do everything. I started my first meetup group because I wanted to meet people and have adventures in San Diego, which is my other meetup group. The Women Empowering Women group kind of fell in my lap at the last day at my day job when I put my notice in, and then it turned out somebody needed to organize. They needed somebody to organize it. And I said, hey, I am a coach who coaches women, and working and doing and organizing a Women Empowering Women group, that's kind of right in my alley. So it's in my lane. Let's do it and see how it goes. So It's been a lot of fun. And thank you for hosting the Connections and Conversations event, which had so many connections going on there. I mean, people really got to connect with each other during your group, and it was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome. I actually feel the same way when I started creating the circles in the first place. It's because I was craving community. And I wanted a space where I felt like I could connect with women and talk about my life and dive into like not taboo topics, but things that maybe we don't normally even talk about with our closest friends or people in our life.
Yes.
And so I thought, okay, well, I mean, I tried a couple different groups and they were, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still gained something from it, but I was like, okay, no one's quite doing exactly what I'm seeking. And so then I was like, well, here you go. I guess I'll start it. And I only had one, actually the first circle, no one showed up. And then the second one woman showed up. And I just kept showing up every single one. I had this mentality that I was like, if no one shows up, I'm going to bring a book. So at least I'm going to have something that I'll do. And I'll spend that hour and a half reading a book, hanging out by myself. And then there was no loss. There was no like fear of no one showing up, because if no one showed up, I mean, great, I get 90 minutes to read my book, For you, like with starting events, I didn't even know you had that other group, the Adventures. In San Diego.
Yeah, that's the one that started it. I moved down to San Diego at the end of 2020, and then I got sick, like really sick a week later. I wound up having to have eye surgery, and then that turned into a whole slew of bad medical events where I almost died. And so once I started getting better, I realized that the number one thing I needed was community, because I moved down to San Diego knowing like 2 people. And so that wasn't ideal. So I started going out, and this was during the pandemic still. So it was kind of hard to get out and do stuff with people. So I tried a meetup group and it was all right, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So I just decided, fuck it, I'm just going to start my own. And so I called it Adventures in San Diego because I had no idea what the hell I was doing and I wanted to go every place and see everything and meet everybody. And I said to myself, well, I'm going to go places I want to go. And if other people want to join me, that's great. And if not, that's great too, because I get to go and experience it. And yeah, so what? I think we're almost at 2,300 people now. So,
Wow.
yeah. So it turns out a lot of people wanted to do the same things I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So most of those events now are a lot of happy hours and they almost always sell out. I always have like a wait list almost the same length as the number of attendees at this point.
That's so cool. And when you started the group, was there any point where people weren't showing up or what, like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
curious.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So my the first meetup I held, this is one of those great stories. There were three of us and it was for like a dinner with a jazz band. Like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. So we went and the music was good and the food was better. And then the jazz band went on intermission. And the guy that was with us, there were myself, a lady, and this guy. And he was probably around 70, I guess. And he was very animated about, and a right-winger, very, very much in the very conservative side. Yeah. And he decided to tell us all about every single racist topic he could come up with and how, young people don't want to work today and all that bullshit. And I'm just staring at him and he's like yelling all of this stuff at us and saying, why aren't you like this? And the lady that was with us was just like, I have to leave. Mm-hmm. And she left. And I looked at this guy who is like saying that, some people should, unalive themselves. And I'm just like, why are you doing this? And he just looked at me smugly and said, because I can. And I was like, so I left. And that night I couldn't sleep. I'm like, what am I doing? This is the first meetup I've had. And how did I attract this person coming to it? Oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I couldn't sleep. So that night I put together guidelines for the group. Guidelines that include things like, no politics, no hard sales, no racism, no bullying, if you feel uncomfortable, come to me. And what it did was it wound up setting the tone for the entire group. Mm-hmm. And so that way I'm able to hold the space for that many people at once. So I got up that morning, wrote it all out, and then immediately kicked him out of the group for violating the guidelines.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that. I actually had to do the same thing with creating guidelines afterwards because I just felt like there were points where there was safety being compromised in like the conversations and stuff. And so now every single circle that I run, I always start off these are my expectations. And I ask anyone that comes into here, values these and respects them because this is the space we're creating here. And if you're not happy with that and you don't like them, that's okay. You don't have to be here. But if you're going to be here, this is what we're doing. Yeah. And but it's interesting because I feel like same thing as you. I had to learn what I didn't like or what wasn't going to work before I could say, this is what is going to work. This is like the space that I want to be created.
Yeah. Totally. And being able to hold that space has really made all the difference. I've only had to remove like 2 people since.
Nice. Yeah.
And
once people see it, they're like, okay. I mean, it's just like, I used to nanny. It's just like working with a toddler. If you set the expectation firsthand.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
We're all just like taller toddlers, essentially,
We all want what we want when we want it. Really.
Yeah. And we work well with some guidelines, a little structure, and a good leader, right? And and definitely like when I go into your accountability group, I feel that leadership. I feel the way that you hold a space and create that expectation, and it feels very comfortable because I've been to those groups where there isn't that leadership role and it feels awkward to join a group like that. You don't really know where you fit in and what that looks like and all of that. So like for you, other than creating the expectations and what the rules were and stuff, what do you feel like is super important for anyone else that wants to like lead events or host things? What do you feel like is really important to create that safety and that sense of like comfortability?
Try things. Don't be afraid of being making a complete and utter ass out of yourself. That's like number one, really, because you don't know what's going to work until it works. With the Women Empowering Women group, I keep trying to do in-person groups. Nobody wants to come to in-person groups. They just want to be online. Whereas the Adventures in San Diego group, everyone wants to be in person and nobody wants to be online.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to work until you try it. So try it. And then number two, when it doesn't work, but you think there's something there, keep showing up.
Okay. Yeah.
Keep showing up. And just after a while, if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. I mean, after like the first month with the Women Empowering Women group, I'm like, nothing's working. And then the accountability group started getting traction.
Okay.
And it's so rewarding with helping everybody and seeing how they are helping themselves with, you know, getting their goals and achieving them and then moving forward and just really accomplishing amazing things.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that's exactly the mentality that I try to tell people too when they're like, how do I start events, or like, how do I coach, or how do I do this? I'm like, you just have to be willing to fall on your face multiple times and embarrass
over and over in different ways. Yep.
Exactly. It's like, and if you're not willing to do that, then essentially I don't think that you can go anywhere. Like, because it's, again, I keep going back to toddlers, but I'm thinking about it, right? When you're learning how to walk, you have to fall on your face so many times before you actually learn how to walk. And it's that same exact thing when we're trying to try anything new as adults. It's just a lot more uncomfortable to fall, I think, as an adult than it is as a kid.
Yeah, it's from a higher level in different ways. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people, in my coaching, I also coach people about turning their passion into purpose. And there's always two things that you have to do. And one of it, the first one is make a decision. It's making the decision to actually do it. And then really making the decision instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to try it. Say, no, I'm really going to do this. And then the second thing is getting into action. And that is the willingness to, you know, fail. And any failure that you have, you learn something from. Every single one, whether it's creating guidelines or, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Either way, you learn something.
Either way, you're learning. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you brought up passion or purpose, because I was going through your Instagram this week and, you know, Insta-stalking you on all the stuff that I could learn about you. And yeah, I saw that you did the Passion to Purpose workshop. And I was curious for you. I feel like looking at you, I see you as being someone that's in your purpose and is
Thank you.
walking that path, right? But like, I imagine at some point you weren't. How did you get from like point A to B where I see you now?
That's a great question, because I had been working in in-flight entertainment for many years. My purpose before was in entertainment, whether it was in the music industry, television industry, or then in in-flight, where I was working with a team of people, leading them to curate content for airlines all over the world, whether that was movies, television, audio, any of that. Yeah, my degree is actually in business management / entertainment management, and with a specialty in licensing. So I did that and managed to travel the world, and it was a lot of fun until it wasn't. And when it wasn't fun was pandemic hits. So the airline industry takes a hard hit. And also the studios who I'm working with, movie studios and television studios, took a big hit. So that was challenging in and of itself. And then coming out of it, there's some things I can't talk about here that are work-related that I have an NDA on, but basically it wasn't fun anymore. And the values that I had changed, and the values that the company had changed. In the meantime, I had been working on learning coaching and applying my coaching credentials with my teams at work. And it finally just got to the point, remember I talked about how I had been really sick during the pandemic? I decided that it was at that time that I wanted to do more with helping people help themselves and with coaching. And so that turned into me starting a part-time coaching practice, Intuitive North. And just a few months ago, when it got to the point where the values with the company I worked for and myself just didn't align anymore, it was time for me to go. So I decided to do it full time. And that is the day that the Women Empowering Women group fell into my lap. And I've really just been blessed in a way that it's all aligned. It's a lot of decision, a lot of work, a lot of getting those reps in. And I just love it. I love the energy surrounding it. I love helping people. And it's taught me so much about not just other people in the world, but about myself as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. As any good journey does, right? Yeah.
That's exactly it. It's like a culmination of a couple of different journeys that just kind of wound up aligning together.
That's cool. So I hear like you had a big career change and shift.
Big career change.
And I feel like that's kind of your niche as well in coaching, right? Is working with professionals, like a midlife type of change and shift. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely. I'm a midlife transformation strategist. So that's working with midlife professionals, entrepreneurs, and creators who are undergoing big transitions and helping them figure out what their life path is going to be, answering the question, what's next for them? And that could be people who are undergoing, empty nesting, people who are starting to think about retirement, people who are being let go from jobs because ageism is a real thing. I'm just saying. Yeah. People are undergoing menopause. There's so many different changes and shifts that happen during midlife that it's about time we talked about it more.
Absolutely. I mean, change is one of the hardest things I feel like as a human to go through, right? Which you can honestly probably place like if you looked at the top 5 stressors in the world, right? They probably are all coordinated with some sort of change, right? Whether that's like moving or divorce or job loss or any of those. And it's scary and crazy. And I feel like if you're older too, and you've maybe had this routine for so long, like you said, like if you've been raising kids for 18 years, 20 years, and then your kids move out of the house and then or you lose a job. Yeah. Do you feel like there's a difference in how you approach supporting people in these changes because they've been in them so long? Or what is that? Is it all kind of similar?
Every person is different. And my approach is very organic. I work off of the client. Every client has different energy and every client has different wants and needs and desires. And working with them to uncover what they really want and what their actual goals are. When some people who are going through this start off with not even having a goal, they're just like, I want something different, but I don't know what that is. In some cases. In some cases, some people know exactly what they want. They just want somebody to be with them along the journey and help them with accountability. Absolutely. It absolutely depends. The beautiful thing is with change and with friction, growth happens. And without growth, then what happens? We're stagnant. So seeing people grow and bloom and blossom is awesome. It's one of the best feelings for me anyway.
I agree. And I can only imagine you take a lot of the tools that you probably used to move through a big change, to go through health problems, to go through just so much happening at one time. What were some of the things that you do or even did to support you when you feel lost or overwhelmed or just stuck? That's
actually a great question. And I've never been asked that. So that's why I love it so much, because coming into when I was really, really ill, I had my coaching certification and I knew, meditation, mindfulness, things like that. But I had no idea about things like somatic healing or human design or all these other ways that you can help yourself and you can see who you are from different perspectives, for example. So, inner child work, all of these sorts of things, becoming trauma informed, because how much of what I had gone through had come from trauma beforehand. So during that path, especially during the pandemic, I went down a lot of rabbit holes. And so I've been trained in all of these things now. I love a good human design reading.
Okay.
And these are the things that really helped me along my path. Learning a lot more about myself and what my triggers are and what my reactions are. Learning how to be more mindful of being in the present and not focusing on the future so much, for example, because I have anxiety. So it's learning how to use these modalities, not just with myself, but train others as well on how that can help them calm and soothe their central nervous system.
It's interesting. I feel like relate to a lot of what you were saying, where I feel like you're saying, okay, there were all these modalities I knew of, right? They were in your head. You were aware of the concepts of them and maybe even did them as well. But it kind of wasn't until you came into yourself and actually dug deep into who am I and what triggers me and what's my human design, what's kind of knowing all the intricacies of what makes Joan Joan, then you were able to take those modalities and have them be something that were actually effective for you.
Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't until I was in the depths of it. And I was searching. Searching is such a huge thing because when you search, you find. And if you're not searching, it doesn't come sometimes. Sometimes it could drop in your lap and sometimes you got to look for it.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's that decision, like I need to change or I need something or I want something. If you search for it, then it's going to arrive, especially if you're like, there's no other option but this. There's no other option but change.
It's that decision point. Once again, huge. Making that decision instead of just being like, yeah, maybe I'll do it. Two different things, two different energies entirely.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'm not someone that is super into the woo-woo side of things. I dabble. I like a dabble in it, right? But I feel like that's similar concept as like manifestation, right? It's that it's the same. I think manifestation is essentially saying, I've decided that this is what I'm going to seek or what I'm going to grow in. And when you make that decision, I think that's the most powerful thing there, not necessarily all the other side things, but it's that, like you said, that first decision.
Yeah, when you make that decision, the how will appear. Because you've already made it and you've decided, I'm going to search and figure it out no matter what. And if you're going to work on it and figure it out no matter what, then the how appears.
Absolutely. Yeah. And something that I had to do so I started doing some in-person events when I was in Idaho, where there were some bigger in-person events where I was hiring outside people and like, it was bigger than any other like circles and things that I'd hosted. And something that I had to do to actually make sure it happened, because I talked about it for months and months, and nothing was happening. And it wasn't until I said, okay, this is the date. It's happening January, whatever. I made a poster for it. I had no idea what was actually going to happen at this event, but I knew. I didn't know who I was going to hire. I didn't know how it was going to look, but I had a name, I had a date, a time, and I had like an aesthetic, right? So I created a poster. I started promoting it out. And as soon as I started selling tickets, I said, you better get your butt into gear, girl. Make this happen. You got some accountability. People are going to be showing up to this thing. And that's how I created the first event. It's like once I had that external pressure of people are expecting something from this and they're wanting to show up and they're seeking something, right? And but it literally wasn't until I actually said, okay, here's the date. I talked about hosting these types of events for years until it actually happened. And and that's what's worked for me. I've talked to some people that think that's insane that I would ever start selling tickets for something that I didn't even know what exactly was going to happen. But that's what works for me. That's intense accountability.
And the same thing works for me too. It doesn't exist until I put it on the calendar.
There you go.
And then, oh crap, I'd better figure it out, huh? I need to create this. I need to create the marketing plan. Do I need to create a workbook? Okay. Do I need to create a workshop? Okay. Do I need to create a course? What do I need to do to make this work? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. And it's scary when you're doing that. It puts like a lot of pressure on you and it can be stressful for some people. And I kind of live for it.
Me too.
That's how I get shit done.
Me too.
And I hate it because it's like the other half of the time I'll just be sitting around going, okay, what do I need to do now? What do I want to do? And then when it comes to me, it's like, bam, action, go.
And then it's crunch time and you better do it. Yeah.
Yep.
But I think that's the key in doing something like this, entrepreneurial things or creating something from the ground up, is like, you have to figure out what works for you. So not everybody is going to work the way that you and I work, right? Where you put it on the calendar, you're just going to make it happen. You kind of like a little bit of pressure, someone behind you that's like, get your butt into gear. But some people aren't going to work that way. So I feel like the key is not to like have to have some certain system, but to discover for you what motivates you, what keeps you going. And I know we've talked a little bit about it, but for you, like what is like something that motivates you? What is that driving force that keeps you moving forward and taking that next step?
I love this question because I think everyone needs an anchor. And that's kind of what you're talking about, is the anchor. And for me, the anchor is I want to be the guide for others that I never had. And that is my thing. And it's a challenge because realizing that, hey, wait, I didn't have these guides. I didn't, and having to create it for yourself, that's a really interesting challenge, especially when I'm just going to go to inner child work where my inner child's like, you're parenting me now. And my inner child's both like, I want a cookie and give me a hug and what the hell are you doing?
Yes.
All of the above.
Yes.
So that's kind of interesting because it's like I'm reparenting my child in my 50s. What am I doing? It's a little nutty and it's a little on the woo-woo side. And it's really healing. It's so healing.
I feel like inner child work is such a kind of hot button topic right now, right? Especially in the health and wellness world of just like getting back into yourself, reparenting and all these things. But if you were to explain that in a way, how would you explain reparentification and inner child work for yourself?
For me, it's about loving who I have been in the past and helping guide her because she's still back at different various ages where different traumas happened, whether that's 4 or 7 or 11. It's meeting your inner child in that space and helping raise her up through love instead of saying to yourself the things that, I don't know about you, but I've said these things a lot to myself, you're no good. Nobody's going to love you. Why are you that way? Why aren't you doing the things that you should be doing? And just being really mean. Instead, being, super nice to that girl and just saying, hey, I know you were never taught how to do this. Let's figure it out now and let me help you with that.
So it's like a shifting perspective of when you hear that inner voice, instead of being like, wow, I'm so mean to myself, or inner Joan is awful, but to just shift and say, okay, maybe that voice is coming from someone that's understood the world differently, 7-year-old me, or like you said, 11-year-old me, or even 4-year-old me, right? And so when that person is saying something, it's being able to separate yourself a little bit from it and say, okay, that's just little me. Have some compassion for that and allow space for it, right? Instead of just trying to shove it down, which I feel like is that first reaction when we start to get those yucky, horrible thoughts.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's that mindful piece of it, realizing and shifting.
Stepping away, looking at it and allowing it and just saying, you just need a little compassion. You just need a little love here. And I know you mentioned somatic
and a cookie
therapy.
Maybe, and a cookie
maybe
and
too,
a hug.
Yeah. And like maybe a cozy blanket, a little something. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I feel like it's funny that you said that because I think when I think of like inner child work too, something that I have a friend that I've had since elementary school. And so she's someone that I love to go to when I feel like I'm struggling because she knows little kid me. She knows little Hannah, right? And so she also knows adult Hannah. And so I can call her and be like, oh my gosh, little Hannah sucks, And she can be like, hey, I loved you then, I love you now. And so that's something that's such a gift in my life is to have those relationships. And so that's something that I seek out when I feel like I'm struggling and my little inner thoughts are not so great, is to just ask for help and have someone in my life that is willing to be there, right?
Love that so much for you. Yeah,
it's good. Friendship's awesome, right? We actually talked about this before with at the accountability group, I think, or we had a conversation about
I think it was the circle that you held. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yes. Exactly. Oh, that makes sense. That was the theme.
Right? Yeah, relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For you though, in your life, I know that you said you have some friends too that are really supportive in your life, but what does that kind of look like for you? What does your community look like, and how do you like foster that and feed that?
That's always been challenging for me. I was an only child, and so, and as soon as I basically hit 19, I was out. It was just like, I'm off to go and find new adventures and to explore the world and to move around and try all these different things. And I had a lot of friends that I just lost along the way, you know, just because of out of sight, out of mind, moving around. So for me, that's always been a challenge. Have those friends circled back? Yes, but it's been a much different capacity, whereas somebody may have been my best friend when we were 25. Now we see each other on Facebook once in a while and don't really talk, but we know each other's lives. So that's actually something that's been a big challenge for me, is creating that community. I have one best friend that, you know, we text every day and just, hey, how's it going? You know, love your post. What happened there? How, you know, what are you up to? So that's wonderful because we've known each other for, 30 years. And then because of leaving my job, for example, I had been at for, 13, 14 years, out of sight, out of mind. So you've lost those friends as well. Some still in touch, but not as much. You have these identity shifts throughout your life. And those shifts sometimes come along with your friends going too. And if you've had a lot of shifts throughout your life, like me, you don't necessarily have as many friends as you did. So every place you go, you kind of have to make new friends, which is part of why I did the meetup. And from that, I've met my core friend group here in San Diego, and we catch up with each other all the time and see each other and have dinners and, you know, brunches and things like that. And then I've got like an outer group, which are people that I've met through the meetup in some way, shape, or form. And I have this outer group, which are people that are folks that I've met along the way, whether that's through networking or through, you know, concerts and events and things that I go to, which has been fantastic too. So I think every season in our life, you wind up with different friends. And if you're lucky enough to have had close friends since a young age, you're rich. You're relationship rich.
Yeah, I agree. You actually answered what was going to be my next question, which was how do you make friends? Especially as I feel like as someone who makes a lot of changes, that already adds, excuse me, a layer of I can't even talk. Excuse me. Let me just take a sip of tea real quick. Okay, so yeah, having a lot of changes already adds like a layer of difficulty with making friends. But then I also feel like with age, there's this kind of mentality. I see it more so with women for some reason. I don't know why that is, where we get a little bit older and like, even like people like my mom's age and stuff, or my age, are saying, oh, you know, it's really hard to make friends when you're older. It's really hard to make friends when you're a mom. It's really hard to make friends when you're, you know, in any certain age. But it's like this kind of idea that you can't really connect or make friends once you reach a certain point. Even I'm only 29. People say, oh yeah, it's really hard to make friends once you're out of college. Like you can't really make friends anymore. And I just think that's a load of BS. What's your perspective on that?
I agree 100%. You make friends if you choose to make friends. And it's going back into that getting into action piece again. If you don't get into action and you expect people to come to you, you aren't going to make friends. And I'll give you an example of this. This is my dad. After he retired, he was bitter and angry because, you know, his friends that he made at work weren't in touch with him anymore. And so that's interesting in and of itself. And I said, well, Dad, what are you doing to make friends? And he goes, well, you know, nobody talks to me. I said, well, do you talk to them? Well, no, because I expect them to talk to me. That's not going to help out. Okay, are you volunteering someplace? Are you doing activities? No. But I don't have any friends. It's like, you have to get out there. You have to search. If you search, you'll find. Kind of like hide and seek when you're a kid. Same thing.
Exactly. Like, I can't remember what the exact quote was, but there's a quote or a sentiment I think of often, which is like, what I desire or what I want is my responsibility to create.
Very much so.
Oh, that is such a powerful thing to take on because it separates me from being just the victim of things, right? Like no one contacts me or no one keeps in touch with me or what's wrong with all my friends that haven't, done whatever they've done, which was my mentality for so long when it came to relationships with others, specifically female friendships. And so when I love this idea of I'm responsible to create though, because if I'm responsible for it, then that means I actually have the power to go out there and do that. Whether that's approach an uncomfortable conversation with someone, or it's to reach out to people I haven't talked to in a long time, even though I'm like, do they want to hear from me? I don't know. Or, and being willing to do those things, then I know, okay, then I can create that. And you can. It's like that, the evidence of that just shows everywhere, right? It's exactly what we've been talking about this entire episode, right? Making the decision is like, yeah. Your desire is your responsibility to create. You just have to create it. You just got to do it. Mm-hmm.
Make the decision, go into action. Seriously.
Yeah.
And there's a deeper level to that. There's another deeper level to that friendship thing, though, which is if you want to have a friend, you have to be a friend.
True.
It's a two-way street here. You can't just, once you meet that person, you can't just say, okay, cool, I met that person. You need to try and connect with them too on a different level, whether that's, you just met a person, hey, let's go out to coffee. Or you met a person, hey, you like concerts, I like concerts, let's go and do something together. Or you meet a bunch of people and you say, hey, why don't we have brunch at my place? Just coming up with ways to create that community and to create those friendships and to hone them, even if it's just a text that says, hey, haven't heard from you in a while, how you doing? Mm-hmm. Just the little things.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's being a friend. It's showing the effort. It's showing that you care about that person and that you want to stay connected with them. And if they feel the same way, then they reciprocate. And there you go. You have that beautiful friendship that happens between the two of you, the gift of connection and intimacy. I think another thing a lot of people miss when it comes to being a friend as well is being vulnerable with others. At least for me, I was plenty open and fine with holding other people when they were vulnerable, right? Like, yes, vent to me about all your struggles, or I'll hold you while you cry. And I was willing to do all these things for others, but I wasn't willing to show myself not in my best state to anyone. And so because of that, there was such a lack of intimacy or a lack of connection with those, even if I felt like we got along really well. And they might think we're really good friends because they felt like they've been intimate with me, but I never felt like I was that close with anyone. And it's something that I think that a lot of us forget to do. And that was kind of a huge block in me creating any sort of sustainable, fulfilling relationships with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that a lot. Yeah. When I was younger, it was easier to be vulnerable. And then when you're kind of in your beginning midlife, it's almost harder because you're trying to prove yourself when it comes to work or with life or things like that. And I found like that was challenging until I got sick, until I got really, really ill. And that was like, I had to reteach myself how to ask for help. Mm-hmm. And how to show that I am vulnerable in a physical sort of a way, as well as emotionally, because having that identity shift is just mind-boggling when you don't know if you're going to live or die, for example. So that brought a whole different layer to my awareness when it comes to being vulnerable. And that was really hard for me. That was difficult.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's interesting. The last woman I just interviewed actually has struggled with health things. And she mentioned that was the most difficult part about it was the vulnerability and asking for help and feeling just how the willingness to be open to help is already such a vulnerable thing. But then to also be physically vulnerable is a place that, I think most people would struggle with that.
I don't know. I mean, it feels like some people in life have kind of more of a victim mentality where they're always asking for help. And sometimes they may use health issues as a crutch for that. And I experienced that in my life with my mother. So that could have been pieces of it too. Look at us getting deep and all psychological and shit. No.
I love it. I knew, Joan. I was like, we're going deep, girl, today. This is happening.
Yeah, this is what happens when you do deep inner work.
I knew it was in there, Joan. You didn't have to, like, you haven't shown it, but I knew it was there. And I was like, it's coming out today. I love it. It
so comes out no matter what sometimes. Yeah. I have no issues with talking about this stuff. It's just like, bring it.
Yeah, me too. Honestly, I now I'm at a point in my life where I actually really love to be open and vulnerable about things to an extent, right? I'm not like telling the guy down the street what's going on in my life, but it's so refreshing to get to have conversations with people where I do feel like I can just say, this is me. Yeah, it's not always great. And I've made lots of mistakes in relationships and things, and being able to talk about that so openly is just, it's so refreshing and freeing.
And I think we need to talk about these sorts of things more because, I mean, so many people just have this front all the time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And letting that door open a little bit into our hearts and into our lives, letting people have a peek, that helps them think, wow, I'm not alone.
Totally. Yeah. It gives them permission as well to not be perfect or to share their vulnerabilities and their stories, which goes back to what we were talking about with intimacy and connection, right? Just if one person is willing and open to do so, then if someone else is there and willing to receive that and be open as well, that's when you get that like, that like juicy goodness connection that you're like, this is what I'm here for in life in general. Like I'm here for those connections. And that's why I love hosting the circles that I do, because that's really what it goes back to is I want us to have that moment where you meet the other person and you're saying, okay, we're both here. And we're both not really great, and that's okay. Or maybe we're both great and we're both here. But being able to like have those points where we meet each other, it's like that's really what I feel like life is about is those little moments where you get that. And I feel so thankful that I get to experience that every single time I host a circle. There's always that moment with every woman I talk to where if we're both there and we're both open, we get to connect. And it's just like, it feels magical. I always describe it as magical. Like this is literally magic on earth, what we're seeing in front of us. And it sounds funny to say it, but it is magical. It's special.
Miracles happen every day. That's the way I always think of it. Yeah. And that's one of those things when you have those connection points, those sparks, it's like mini miracles.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And this is why the podcast is so cool too, because I just feel like we get so many moments of that. And like you and I have had great conversations, right? And we've gotten to know each other a little bit, but being able to sit here and actually talk about life a little bit more is just something that's really cool. I'm very thankful. So thank you again for being here.
and thank you for inviting me. Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, this is so great. Speaking of like...
Okay, so Flav, take some more skin off of me. Come on, let's go.
Okay. It's freaking day, girl. I got the shovel. Let's do this. You did say, I have to share this actually, because this cracked me up. When I texted you and I said, would you be on my podcast? You wrote back, you said, I was born to be on the Brave Bitches podcast.
Hell yeah.
I said, okay, I love that. This is probably to date the best answer I've ever had to someone saying that they're down to be on the podcast.
Seriously? Other people haven't done that? Oh my God.
No.
Look, I've been called a badass in my life. I've been called a trailblazer. I've been called a lot of things, but I have not been called a brave bitch. So I'm adding that to the pantheon.
Yes.
It's amazing. This is like a badge of honor.
Honestly, here's your badge right here, Joan. You absolutely deserve
Yay!
it. Yeah, so fun. Like that's something that I just feel like is also refreshing because the term brave bitch, right? It's a little rough. It's a little controversial. And I knew that when I created it based on kind of stuff that we've already talked about at the beginning of this call, right? I wanted to attract people that I wanted to be specific enough that the people that showed up knew what they were signing up for, that And Brave Bitches, because it has a little of a rougher sound, it doesn't sound like so perfectly woo-woo, happy, great, joyful. I'm like, I want you to show up as you, right? And with that in mind, oh my gosh, I don't even know where I was going with this. Where was I going with this?
I hope it's someplace good.
My mind today, can I just say, has been a mess. But, so anyways, when I was creating this, what was I talking about? Fighting for my life, this whole episode. I literally can't remember where I was going with that.
Brave Bitches.
What?
The name Brave Bitches.
My husband's piping in. He's
trying to help.
Luckily, I can edit these episodes, so and now
which is what I'm sorry that you can, because this is great. You're like, okay. I am sweating over
I'm
here.
I'm literally blushing now. I'm a mess. Joan, it's okay. I'm being vulnerable with you. I'm allowing you to see who I really am here.
You're doing great.
Thanks, I appreciate it. We're just gonna change the subject. We're just gonna move on.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Okay. This is where we're just gonna roll with this, Joan. We're here. We're live. Maybe I will just keep all this in. Let people see me for who I am. A mess. Forgetting everything. Can I just admit, this entire episode, every time I've been about to ask a question, I forget what I'm about to ask right before I say it, and then I say it.
Why?
I don't know why. Now my camera's falling. I'm just having a day. I'm glad I'm here with you.
Oh God, I hope it wasn't when I came on. I hope it...
No. I've had a week, honestly. Let me just fix this real quick. Okay. We're here. Let me just take a deep breath.
Put your feet on the ground. Ground yourself a little bit, girl.
Okay. Stretch out my little neck. Okay.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Okay. All right. We're here. Center myself. New subject. Justin says new subject. He's so sweet. Sitting right next to me.
I'm sorry. The bad bitches one was fantastic.
I know.
Brave bitches one.
I was honestly going on such a good one. You don't even know. It was going to be like a 10.
You were. I don't know where it went, but it'll come back or it won't.
It'll come back. And if it comes back, great. I'm happy for it. If not, wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Here's something that I want to hear from you, Joan. I feel like we've talked a lot about, the past few years, a lot of transformation you've had in the past 4 or 5 years or so. But if you were to go all the way back to like when you were 18, 20, kind of starting out career life, and you could give yourself some advice, some words of kindness or love, what would you say?
Do what you feel like you're supposed to be doing. And when I say supposed to be doing, it's what you feel deep inside instead of what society says to do. I started off being an accountant's assistant. Can I tell you how much I absolutely hated accounting? But my family needed money. My dad had been laid off. He didn't have any money. They'd run through everything. So I was working full-time straight out of high school, went part-time to college. And so I had to earn some money for the family, and it's what you're going to do. And then at 19, I was finally like, I can't take this anymore. I have to leave. And that's when I moved. I moved to Colorado to be an accountant again for a little bit. And I did that for a few years. And I said, I hate this. I hate this so much. I'm going back to school and I'm going to do what I always wanted to do, which was be in the music industry. Vague, I know, but I'd been a musician when I was a kid. I actually had worked at some music festivals and things like that as a stage manager. And so I wound up getting my degree in entertainment management and then interning for a metal label in LA, and then getting a job at a company that had 2 labels. One of them was death metal and the other one was bluegrass. Swear to God.
That's a variety.
It's a variety. And then, so for all of you folks who are on an unconventional path, this is the most unconventional path you get. Yeah. Death metal and bluegrass. Go figure it out.
Do you like both those genres? I'm curious.
I like metal. I don't like death. I'm not going to say I don't like death metal. I can appreciate death metal, and bluegrass is the punk rock of country. However, I'm not a country fan. but I can appreciate bluegrass as well. Basically, it was learning experiences because I was working with independent labels. So I learned everything from soup to nuts, from marketing to PR to licensing and things like that, which is what I wanted to do, was learn all of it. Then I wound up somehow getting recruited into television and working for USA Networks and the Sci-Fi Channel. Which was a blast, and I got to travel throughout most of the country, giving public speeches and training people and things. It was so much fun.
That's so cool.
And then wound up going to Disney after that, and doing affiliate relations there. And then wound up leaving that job because Disney and I were not a fit, and wound up working for a company that did in-flight entertainment. Movies on board airplanes. Who knew? And wound up in and out of that industry for 20 plus years. So that's really an unconventional career path.
A journey, yes. But also it feels like every single position that you took on elevated you a little bit. And even though you were hopping around and going and trying out different types of venues or things, it was bringing you up a little bit every single time. But then you stayed in in-flight entertainment for a long time.
Yeah, with a couple of different companies. And I had about a 3-year break when my father passed away, and I had to take care of him before he passed. And then that was during the Great Recession. And that's a whole nother story where I lost everything, house, all my money, everything. Just disastrous. So, yeah, I have been through a lot and know transition incredibly well, which is why that midlife transformation strategy is kind of my jam. It's like, I've lived through it. I know the processes and I know what not to do.
Yes.
Don't do what I did type of thing. I'm a cautionary tale.
Learn from my mistakes. But, I mean, you've also gone through it in so many different, you keep sharing with me. There's multiple incidences where you have gone through dramatic life shifts, huge changes in your life. And I'm sure each time you found new ways to approach it and deal with change.
Absolutely.
What are some of the
Every single thing was a lesson. Every single thing was a lesson.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I feel like a big part of adapting through change is allowing, right? Or permission for it to be difficult, right? Or things like that. What are some of the kind of mindsets that you feel like are really important when you are approaching a big life change?
You're 100% right on the allowing piece of it. And that was what was hardest for me. Bit of a control freak here. So learning to let go of that control has been life-changing. I'm undergoing huge change right now, but letting go of that control and letting the universe, whoever, steer the wheel for a while setting my intentions and making my decisions and taking those actions. And I know it's going to have a much different outcome than in the past when I've had these transitions and I've been like, oh my God, we're all going to die. I'm never going to be able to recuperate from any of this. It's awful.
Yes.
Totally different approach.
Yes. It's like that feeling when you have your first breakup, right? Where it's so devastating and you're like, I'm never going to date anyone else and this is horrible and I'm never going to heal and I'm always going to feel this horrible, awful gaping hole in my chest and just like all these things, right? And you feel like it's the end of the world. And that's really one of the first big changes that happens a lot for us in, adolescence and into young adulthood. But yeah, I think it's that same sentiment with all sort of changes, right? Where it's easy to dive into the hole of just feeling like you're going to be stuck there forever.
Exactly. Yeah. And spoiler alert, you aren't unless you choose to. If you want to be stuck there forever, hey, we can do that, But if you want something better, you got to let it go in some way, shape, or form. Remember the lesson, but, make that decision to get out of it, take action. As much as I hate this too shall pass, it's true. And at the same time, I hate to use the words like it's bypassing, but it's just like, it's not giving action to the person, if that makes sense. It's, for me, a better mantra is, if you think you're going through hell, keep going.
I like
Just
that.
keep on, find that light and walk towards it. Whatever that light is. Okay, it might be fire, still a light. Means you're getting another lesson, because sometimes you're getting redirected to stuff.
Yeah.
Which is shitty, but it happens.
Yeah.
But
No, I
that
like
light
that.
at the end of the tunnel, there's a light at the end of the tunnel someplace.
Absolutely.
You just have to look for it.
And that quote,
Gosh, that searching
definitely-
thing is kind of a theme here too. Yeah.
Honestly, we've been so on theme. I don't know. I mean, we've just been aligned. I feel like everything that we've talked about. But yeah, again, here's another thing that's aligned with what we talked about earlier, is that's, again, placing responsibility back into ourselves, right? And away from just life happening to us, but us actually being a conscious participator in our life as it's happening. And I've never thought about this too shall pass in that way, but that makes so much sense to see it that way, because, yeah, it makes me think of floating down a river on like a tube or something, right? And yeah, you could live life that way and just float, 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 or you could swim to a side or swim counter current if you gotta, but being able to take some responsibility into where you're actually going instead of just letting that tube, this too shall pass you, all the way to the next, thing.
Yeah, and I think we all do that in at least one area of our lives. We're just like, I don't even want to look at it. I just want to keep floating down the river and everything's going to be fine.
And sometimes that
But
might
some
be the
things
right
you can't.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you can do is just like float down the river. And sometimes that in and of itself is a choice. Just to not make it.
It is. Completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-care is a thing. Float on down that river.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I was just having that yesterday, where there's some things up in the air in my life right now. And I was like trying to decide what to do with it. And I was feeling overwhelmed, and I had like too many cry sessions in a day. And so then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna float now. I'm not gonna make any more choices. I'm not gonna make a choice today, because I already know that right now, the state I'm in is not to make a choice. I actually had my husband remind me of that first before I made the conscious choice. But that's why you have people in your life.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And it was a conscious choice. I talked to my brother about it, and he was like, well, when do you think you're going to decide? And I was like, not today. Not making a choice today. And he was like, well, what are you waiting on? I'm like, nothing. Just not making a choice. It's just where I'm at.
Yeah, and I'm going to have a human design moment here, because
Love it.
in my case, I'm an emotional manifesting generator. So I need to ride that wave. And that emotional wave for me means sleeping on it. If there's a big choice to be made. But before, I'd be knee-jerk and I'd be reacting immediately to things. And that's a problem for my type. Another little known fact, my sun gate is the gate of crisis. So for me, it's like I'm kind of born for this transformation stuff. And seeing that after I learned about human design is just like, that explains things. What? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I know a little bit about human design. Some people have, mentioned certain things with it, people in my life, other coaches I've known. But personally, I don't really have a lot. To me, it feels very overwhelming, or like there's a lot of information to learn about.
There is. Yeah.
So if you were to give me like a tip on how do you start, like what is a good basic beginning to dive into something like human design?
Oh gosh. Having your chart read, I'm just going to say that off the top. Having it done by a professional is going to be the best way to start. Yeah. Make that investment, because no, I did it the hard, long way. I learned about it during the pandemic, and you know how we all had a pandemic rabbit hole? That was my rabbit hole.
Oh, got it.
So I learned enough to be dangerous with it, which took years to be that dangerous with it.
Yeah.
I was not trained in it, but it's something that I do light readings for my clients on, because I have the luck of now having friends who are human design readers and who are completely certified in it. So I've learned a lot from them. At the same time, if I was to start it all over again, I would have gotten a professional reading, because that would have helped out immensely immediately. I didn't get a professional reading until a couple of years ago. And it was just kind of like, oh, so that's why I don't understand these things that I thought I knew. Okay, cool.
Got it. And is it based
just don't do those 3 years. Don't do those 3 years of trying to learn about yourself. Just don't.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Is it based? It's based on your birthday, right? Correct?
Mm-hmm. It is. Yep.
Okay.
And it's a combination of like astrology, the I Ching, Kabbalah, gene keys. It's a little bit of everything. And it's kind of fun when you find a practitioner who understands not just human design, but also gene keys, because that can help you with your incarnation cross better and understanding it. I know, it's a whole thing.
I was like, I don't know what any of those words mean.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Keys and all that. But yeah, I did a few years ago after I left the church, because I grew up Christian, I dove really deeply into the Enneagram. Have you heard of the Enneagram?
Yeah, I love Enneagram. I use that as an assessment as well for my clients.
Okay, yeah. So that was a huge tool for me in diving into that, and, you know, a self-growth tool where I was seeing a lot of gaps in my life and places I could grow. But now I don't really even think about the Enneagram often, because I don't feel like I fit in that box as well as maybe I did before. But at the time it was such a huge tool, and it was also a huge tool in how I related in my marriage as well. And so, yeah, it's, I think so many of those like personality tools and stuff, they can be used as something that's really lighthearted and kind of, you know, not impactful. But I also think that if you invest into it and you're willing to, it can be such a great insight into yourself and your own, you know, needs and self-growth tools.
I agree completely. And I think that each person is different with how deeply they want to go inside of themselves and actually do a deeper dive into what makes you, you. Some people are just like, I'm just me and I'm good. I don't need to know. Then again, I've had some folks who are clients and I'm like, hey, take a Clifton Strengths test. Let's find out what your strengths are. And yeah, I had one person quit their job literally the next day after taking that, because they were just like, I identify with my strengths so strongly and my job is doing none of these. I need to find the right thing. Boom.
Wow.
Bye. It was wild.
That's wild. And that's so cool that they're willing to see that. But it wasn't until they actually saw it right in front of their face. Oh, here's my strengths. Here's my job. That's not quite aligning. That's really cool. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, and that's why they can be so powerful. It's the same thing with astrology or any of these other things. I think the same thing. If you're willing to use it as a tool and insight into yourself, then it could be really powerful. It's not powerful when you start to use it as a tool to label others or, you know, that's when the personality test stuff, I feel like, can get a little convoluted and tricky, is when people start to be like, well, then you're this or you're like that, or, you know, and and that's just takes away from the tool itself. But humans love to do that. We love to find something to say, I can identify you, or I can fix you, or, you know, whether it's religion or personality tests or whatever it is. It's just human weakness, I think.
Yeah. Blow up those boxes. Use it for yourself. Don't judge others. No point in that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is so cool, Joan, that I got to talk to you today and get to know you a little bit. I appreciate your time and your willingness, but also just your openness and vulnerability in our conversation today. It was very refreshing.
Thanks. And I love hanging out with you. You're just so much fun, even with the sweating and the...
Stop it, Joan. I was going to cut that out. Now you're calling me out. Yeah, melt down halfway through that.
I knew you would have to cut that out. That's why I did it.
Gotta be called out. I deserve it.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you today, Hannah.
Yes,
I really appreciate you coming to the accountability group and being such a big part in it and helping other people as well in it, because some people come to these groups and they don't know what they want to be accountable for, or, you know, why they even came other than it called to them. So thank you. And thank you for inviting me here today.
Of course. Do you mind if I wrap up our episode with some rapid fire questions?
All right. Let me get settled in.
Yeah. Wiggle those wiggles in. All right. First one. What superpower do you wish that you had?
Invisibility.
Oh, okay. Wait, why? I'm curious.
Because I like to snoop. And no, I'm kidding. No, not
Honesty.
really. I want to hear about the things that I don't know, and then I want to use it to my advantage. We'll just go with that.
Sounds pretty Snoopy
Hey,
to me.
come on. Can you imagine hanging out in like Elon Musk's house and listening to those conversations and then selling that to TMZ or something? I mean, that would be brilliant. Sorry.
TMZ. That's awesome. Yes, that's a great answer. Okay, if you were to recommend 3 books, movies, or podcasts, what ones would you recommend?
I always used to get asked the question, what's your favorite movie? And it's always like the hardest thing with trying to recommend 3 movies, television shows, or podcasts. Oh my gosh.
Or books.
Or books. I have to start off with a movie just because it's what I used to do. And I'm pretty sure that most people in your audience have seen this. And if you haven't, you need to. It's The Princess Bride. Amazing, fun movie. Completely wholesome. And it's a little bit of everything that's right in the world.
Absolutely. It's so funny you mentioned that because that's one of my favorite books, actually, The Princess Bride. I don't know if you read the book. It is fantastic. And I just recorded a YouTube video 2 days ago where I was talking about some of my favorite nostalgic reads, and The Princess Bride was on that list. So I was just talking about that. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. That's awesome. I just finished, for books, The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, who talks about everything creativity and how to best get your inner muses to come out and play.
Cool.
It's phenomenal. So
that sounds
good.
Great.
And for podcasts, I am going to go with Professional Troublemaker by, and I may not be pronouncing her name right, Levia Yaji Jones. And this last season is all about how her business blew up in 2023 and the things that she went through and how she's recuperated from it. So amazing, amazing podcast.
Professional Troublemakers?
Yes, Professional Troublemaker.
Troublemaker. That's such a great name. Okay.
Isn't it though? Yeah.
It's so fun. Okay, I'll look that up. Okay, cool. Next question I have for you is, what is a comfort meal for you?
I have so many. That's a tough one. I'm going to go with sushi.
Can't go wrong with sushi. I love sushi. Okay, and lastly, why do you think it's important in your own life, Joan, to be brave?
I don't think I've got any other option. I'm here to do big things. So to do the things that I am guided to do, I have to be brave. There is no other choice.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. You just got it. Just got to do it. That's so
Gotta do
awesome.
it.
Joan, again, thank you. This was fantastic. Before I let you go, though, is there anything that you would like to share, or how can people connect with you and find you online?
I think you're going to be sharing about the accountability group in the notes, so please do that. You can reach me online, Instagram at intuitive.north. That's my handle there. And intuitivenorth.com for the website. I also have a Passion to Purpose guide, since we were speaking about passion and purpose earlier. That's available on my website, so go grab it.
Perfect. Awesome. Yay. All right. I'll link that stuff all below. So anyone that's interested in connecting with Joan and finding her, you can do so pretty easily. But again, Joan, thank you so much. This was so fun and a great conversation. And I appreciate it. So much love.
My pleasure. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you so much for listening and watching this episode of the Brave Bitches podcast. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, share, review, all that good stuff. Also follow me on Instagram at Hannah Soul Marie or at Brave Bitches without the I for some behind the scenes look and clips from the episode. Again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. That's going to be the one.